I rise to make my contribution to this year's budget debate, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, before I get into the meat of the matter, Madam Speaker, I would like to ask the Leader of the Opposition for a copy of the response to the Prime Minister's presentation which he made this morning. Madam Speaker, because there are several inconsistencies and inaccuracies which have to be corrected in that statement. And I dare say, Madam Speaker, it may take us more than this sitting of the House to do that. So I'd really like to have a copy, Madam Speaker. No, I mean, that is seriously, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I am very heartened by this budget, by what I heard yesterday. And the future is certainly bright. And Madam Speaker, we are going to deal with the facts as they are, Madam Speaker. Not speculation in the window as we heard this morning, but we are going to deal with the facts. Madam Speaker, the fact is, the most important fact here, as far as the budget is concerned, is that the economic activity in Dominica expanded in the fiscal year by 2.8%. Let us get that clear. Let us get that out of the way. And I would invite the members of the opposition who have not yet spoken to refute that fact, if you can, when you speak, Madam Speaker. The economic activity in the economy, Madam Speaker, have grown real growth by 2.8%. And, Madam Speaker, and what is even more important, and what is even more heartening, is the fact that this growth was higher than the regional average, Madam Speaker, in this sub-region. And as if that was not enough, and I want the member for Roseau Central to listen to me, because you seem to be the economic guru on the other side, and I want you to challenge those facts, Madam Speaker. Even in the next fiscal year, which we are planning for, in 2017, the economy is expected to enjoy further growth, Madam Speaker. These are the facts. So when we hear things about 17-year underperformance, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we met this economy in the dumps. We met this economy in shambles when we came into office in 2000. This is not a myth. This is a well-established fact that when we came to power, the debt to GDP ratio in Dominica was 140%, Madam Speaker. And I want to explain what debt to GDP ratio is for the primary schoolers out there, Madam Speaker. For example, Madam Speaker, if you are generating debt to GDP, Madam Speaker, gross domestic product, what you are producing, the sum of all your goods and services that you are producing in the country. So you have your debt on one hand and you have your production on one. If your debt, Madam Speaker, is higher than your production, you are in the red. So any debt to GDP ratio that is higher than 100% means that for every dollar that you are making, you have to find the extra from somewhere else. So when in 2000, after United Workers' Party left office, Madam Speaker, our debt to GDP ratio was 140%. It means we were spending $1.40 for every dollar that we were making, Madam Speaker. We were in the red. And that is why we know it's a fact that public servants could not be paid at the end of the month. It's a fact. Nobody disputes that. Madam Speaker, we know for a fact that government employees, public servants' contribution to the Dominica Social Security was not paid, and the government was owing Dominica Social Security millions. We know that there were millions of dollars of unpaid checks in the Treasury that could not have been drawn, Madam Speaker. These are the facts. Madam Speaker, as soon as the IMF came in, the IMF advised government to divest its majority shares in the NBD, so never again could the bank suffer, Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, I want a proper word, the abuse that it had suffered between the years of 1995 to 2000. So when we're speaking about 17 years of underperformance, when we came to office, Madam Speaker, we had to repair the economy. We had to close the fiscal gap. We had to bring that 40%, Madam Speaker, at 140% down under 100%, to bring our debt to GDP ratio in line, Madam Speaker, with the acceptable figure as required, Madam Speaker, the prudential limit that is called, Madam Speaker. And today, Madam Speaker, we enjoy a debt to GDP ratio of 65%, which is below the regional average, and nobody can tell that. Madam Speaker, when we talk about a failed policy of inclusion, Madam Speaker, this government has the record as far as inclusion is concerned. I do not even want to go as far back as 2000, when we invited our arch rivals to join us, Madam Speaker, to develop the country. When persons from the other side walked the floor and we embraced them with open arms. I don't want to go as far back as that, Madam Speaker. I will go as far back as Tropical Storm Erica. When Tropical Storm Erica hit this country, Madam Speaker, the Honourable Prime Minister, Dr. Roosevelt Skerrit, in his usual magnanimous approach, invited the members of the opposition to sit in cabinets, Madam Speaker, to seek and formulate an approach to the recovery of the country, Madam Speaker. No sooner had they attended one or two meetings, they had to go back to their old self and their old ways, Madam Speaker, because a leopard can never change its paws. And as soon as they left the cabinet room, they held a press conference, Madam Speaker, criticizing and denigrating the government's, Madam Speaker, approach to bringing the country back to a state of normalcy. The government attempt to bring people together in unity and in love, in brotherhood, when we were faced with a disaster. And no sooner had they received and accepted the invitation, they went and held a press conference, Madam Speaker, to criticize the approach of the government. So this is not a surprise for us. This is the modus operandi. This is the way of doing things of the opposition, Mr. Speaker. So when we hear them speaking about parliamentary involvement and bipartisan approach, these are just mere words. Words that have never been backed up by any tangible, concrete actions on their part. And I would tell you why that is so. Because we have the evidence. Here it is, Mr. Speaker, that the Prime Minister again, boy, God bless his soul, Mr. Speaker, because I don't know him. The Prime Minister, after suffering so much criticism by the opposition in and outside of Dominica, and we know what the leader of the opposition did on the 1st of January, but I will come to that. He called for a forum at the State House so that we could sit and discuss a way forward and the future of the citizenship by investment program in the light of the damage that had been done by the opposition. The opposition never attended, Mr. Speaker. They failed to show up. Not one single solitary member of the opposition took up that invitation to come to that forum, Mr. Speaker. Again, Mr. Speaker, we see another regional activity where the country, Mr. Speaker, is recognized by our regional peers. I mean, the opposition is a government in waiting, you know. The leader of the opposition is supposed to be a prime minister in waiting, you know. If, God forbid, something were to happen and we were to lose the election, this is the government of the day. You have a regional activity like the changeover of the chairmanship of the Monetary Council, a council and an organization which you must understand how it operates. You have to be a regionalist, Mr. Speaker. You have to understand the fundamentals of CSME and how the integration process operates. You have to understand the workings of the Monetary Council. You refuse to attend an important activity like that, and then you want to come to this house this morning.
Point of clarification. Honourable Minister for Energy, Trade, and what? Energy, Trade, and what? Energy, Trade, and what? I was off island.
You don't have to clarify. No, you don't have to clarify.
No, but Mr. Speaker.
No.
The gentleman is standing there telling blatant lies.
But we're not going to allow that. You're imputing improper motives. Please,
I was not in the country. I could not
seat.
attend the meeting. I was attending a regional meeting in Barbados.
Mr. Speaker, let me help the leader of the opposition. First of all, you cannot stand on a point of clarification in the middle of my presentation. I didn't have to yield, but it's all right. I yielded to him. And secondly, I said you did not attend. Why and if you did not attend, Madam, Mr. Speaker, is irrelevant. Whether you were in and out of the country, man, is irrelevant. You did not attend, and neither did any single member of the opposition attend that activity. So when we stand here and we're talking about bipartisan approach, and you want to see the budget before we come here, and you want to be part of the process, you have not shown by your ways and your actions that you're interested in any serious dialogue. You have not shown that. So don't come here in this honorable house giving Dominicans the impression that you're interested in bipartisan approaches to the governance of this country, Mr. Speaker. Two important activities after your statement in the United States of America on CBS television news, a television program that has a viewership of millions. You said what we have is a mail-to-order program. And you know what the U.S. could have done, Mr. Speaker? You know, Mr. Speaker, the threats that were posed by that statement to our citizenship by investment program. Mr. Speaker, a program right now that we look in this budget, Mr. Speaker, which is providing tremendous relief by and large throughout Dominica, Mr. Speaker. Damage the program. That is not statesmanship. That is not patriotism, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, that is cheap politicking. That is what it's called. And history will record those who practice cheap politics, Mr. Speaker. That is what history will do, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, they don't come to functions. They don't participate. So we know when we talk about Parliament, it's just called on to rubber stamp the budget, Mr. Speaker. That is what the budget debate is for. The budget debate is for us to debate, Mr. Speaker, all of the measures in the budget. And the leader of the opposition and the members of the opposition have the opportunity to produce and present alternatives, tangible, workable alternatives. We heard nothing from the leader of the opposition this morning which says that this is a tangible alternative, Mr. Nothing, absolutely not. Not one point, Mr. Speaker, I can look and say, okay, yes, the leader of the opposition said instead of X, you'll do Y. Instead of spending CBI money on NEP, you spend it on housing. Instead of, not one single solitary suggestion came from them, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the leader of the opposition said this morning that the budget fails to show the CBI money will place the country on a growth path to grow the economy. So, Mr. Speaker, the CBI funds is funding the Kapinski Hotel. When you build the hotel and you put people to work permanently and sustainably, what is a growth path, Mr. Speaker? Mr. Speaker, the CBI money will be placed, Madam Speaker, a fund will be established in which the Prime Minister said we will deposit $5 million monthly, Mr. Speaker, to create and to build the international airport, to bring more tourists to Dominica. This is a sustainable growth measure, Mr. Speaker. When you have the international airport, Mr. Speaker, when you have Jungle Bay, Mr. Speaker, Jungle Bay was destroyed by Tropical Storm Erica through no fault of anybody, through an act of God. One of the most popular accommodation at its time in the country and maybe even in the region of its type, the rustic type and rustic nature of Jungle Bay. Jungle Bay was enjoying several international accolades, Mr. Speaker. Tropical Storm Erica, through an act of God, caused a landslide and the place was destroyed. The proprietor of Jungle Bay decided that he wanted to rebuild the property. He came to the government. Mr. Speaker, we suggested a particular property to him. Mr. Speaker, you have politicians who seek to be leaders in this country, Mr. Speaker, telling the man, don't build the hotel under this government. And all of the jobs that are to be created in Soufriere, all of the fishermen to sell their fish. In Scott said, Mr. Speaker, all the way back to Grand Bay, Bellevue, Chopin, Petit Savane, people will come with their provision and their vegetables. People in Roseau South, in Newtown, and in Loubier. the direct and indirect jobs that can be created as a result of that. You're telling the man, don't rebuild the hotel under this government, and you want to tell me you're interested in bipartisan cooperation, Mr. Speaker? 100 jobs already created. What would the people who are there now working presently, Mr. Speaker, where would they be? 100 jobs already created, Mr. Speaker. We have, Mr. Speaker, the people of the Petit Savan community. Tropical storm Erica destroyed their community. Lives were lost. People's homes were destroyed. Mr. Speaker, people who built their homes and took mortgages in the bank to build their properties cannot even go back to their properties now. The government, through the citizenship by investment program, has rebuilt the small village in center in Jubic, has completely rebuilt Jubic, and everybody has been settled. The government is now in the process of resettling Petit Savan. You couldn't find not even that, Mr. Speaker. 108 jobs now created, and many more sustainable jobs to be. It's not sustainable development, Mr. Speaker. Long-lasting. One man can get up in the morning and go to work, and he have a lasting job for the rest of his life because of the creation of communities, because of the creation and the building and construction of hotels. He can go to the bank and he can take a mortgage, a 20-year mortgage, a 30-year mortgage, and build his home. That is what sustainable jobs are all about. That is what the government is doing, not trying to do, Is doing. And all we are trying to do is to expand that. And you could not say not one solitary word about that in your response to the budget, Mr. Speaker. Not one word. You said the budget is protecting the interests of a few. Mr. Speaker, all of the 2,000 people, all of the 2,000 young people around Dominica today who can leave their home and go to a job, who can feed their children, all the single mothers can feed their children. Mr. Speaker, we have university graduates who we have placed in job placements. We have graduates from the Dominica State College who are at work today, who don't want to go and study, are at work today, Mr. Speaker. And you call them protecting the interests of a few. That's a few. Mr. Speaker, the monies that we have placed at the aid bank for the farmers at the cheapest rate available in the region today, in CARICOM today, there is nowhere else you can go to, no bank you can go to in Grenada or Antigua or anywhere else and get money at 3% interest, Mr. Speaker, with a year grace period, Mr. Speaker. All of the hoteliers, Mr. Speaker, all of the hoteliers who keep telling us for years, Mr. Speaker, that because they were operating for a number of years, their plant and equipment have run down, Mr. Speaker, and cannot now attract. Mr. Speaker, I don't need protection. I don't need protection from the opposition, Mr. Speaker. Let the people of Dominica see the reaction of the opposition to our presentation of the budget. I want the people of Dominica to see them. I don't need the protection from you, Mr. Speaker, with all due respect. So, Mr. Speaker, all of the hoteliers whose plant and equipment is now old, and they have to compete with the newer, more recent plants on island and even off island, because tourism is a competitive business. The government have placed $15 million at the aid bank so that those hotel plants can upgrade their plant at interest rates that can be found nowhere else in the Caribbean. You could not say anything about that this morning. You couldn't say, well, okay, take out the 3%, give it to them at 1%, expand the grace period. Nothing at all. There's nothing. An important sector, an important demographic. Mr. Speaker, your statement is that the budget is protecting the interests of a few. Which few, Mr. Speaker? The farmers, the banana farmers. Mr. Speaker, again, through no fault of the government, Black Sigatoka is ravaging the Eastern Caribbean. Martinique and Guadeloupe is spending millions on Black Sigatoka. St. Lucia have been spending millions to control Black Sigatoka. It is not a disease that is germane to Dominica, Mr. Speaker. But you see that we are spending money. We brought in 15,000 plantlets and we distributed it to the farmers, Mr. Speaker. our first 15,000 plantlets. We brought in a second 15,000 plantlets, which will be distributed in August, free of charge. Not one farmer, Mr. Speaker, will be charged $1 for those plantlets, although it costs government thousands of dollars to import those plantlets. And again, in August, while we are distributing the mature, strong plantlets, resistant plantlets, we have already placed on order a third 15,000 plantlets for the banana industry, Mr. Speaker. So when we say the budget is not clear, and it's not fair, well, if you're driving in the dark with your lights off, Mr. Speaker, you cannot see what is in front of you. And that is what the opposition have been doing for years, driving in the dark. I have been here, Mr. Speaker, I have been here for 17 years, and I cannot pinpoint one possible, tangible solution or suggestion to anything in a budget debate that the opposition have brought. Successive opposition leaders, Mr. Speaker, every single, not one suggestion that could be implemented by this honorable government, Mr. Speaker. The budget's response was just prose, fine prose. You know when you sit behind a council and you're having a radio talk show, just fine prose, Mr. Speaker. But nothing out of there that we could take, Mr. Speaker. A finance committee of cabinet. A finance committee of cabinet. So a finance committee of parliament of parliament or cabinet. So what? So you're making the financial secretary redundant? You're making the budget controller, you're sending them home? What, you're dismissing the entire Ministry of Finance? You have top public servants who have distinguished themselves in helping to stabilize the economy in tough times. I don't understand that, Mr. Speaker. A finance committee, you're rewriting the Constitution of Dominica. Mr. Speaker, these are constitutional appointed offices, you know. It's not the Dominica Labour Party or Dr. Roosevelt Skerry, the Honourable Prime Minister of Dominica, who get up on Friday morning and appointed persons, you know, Mr. Speaker. These are constitutionally appointed offices, appointed by the Constitution to perform, Mr. Speaker, particular roles as far as the preparation of the budget is concerned, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, when the leader of the opposition says that he will abolish the contingency fund warrant, Mr. Speaker, we have learned a lot from the days between 95 and 2000, Mr. Speaker. We have learned a lot about LPO fiasco, Mr. Speaker. LPO fiasco. Do you remember when Hurricane Lenny struck Dominica?
Hello. Order, please. Order. I have had enough. I've really had enough. I have had enough. Let us allow the member to make his contribution. The other members who have not made their contributions will have the opportunity to speak. Let's do this properly. We have the young ladies taking note. They need to hear exactly what is going on. So, Honourable Member, please continue.
Elections with integrity. All of a sudden now we come up with this term and this phrase, election with integrity. So in 1990, Mr. Speaker, when the Dominica Labour Party lost the elections, there was elections with integrity. And there was a new party on the scene which won 6 seats in their first trial at the polls. There was no question about election with integrity. Mr. Speaker, when that same party became the government of the day in 1995, there was no question about election with integrity. There was no question at all. All was fair, all was nice and dandy, Mr. Speaker. But all of a sudden, Madam Speaker, today, because the people of Dominica go to the polls free and fair and elect a government they believe is working in their interest, Mr. Speaker, all of a sudden we have integrity issues. For what? 8 elections since independence, 1980, 85, 90, 95, 2000, 2005, 2009, 2014. 8 elections since post-independence, Mr. Speaker, all of a sudden we have questions about integrity. Well, okay, we have questions of integrity. So the government again, Mr. Speaker, this government, I tell you, will go down in history, you know, Mr. Speaker, for extending the olive branch. Will go down in history for extending the olive branch. This government, Mr. Speaker, in the interest of good governance, of transparency, of reaching across the aisle, of burying the hatchet, Mr. Speaker, after the guys burned down Roseau, Mr. Speaker, after we had fire and flames, which guys? Mr. Speaker, I call nobody's name. Mr. Speaker, I call nobody's name.
I know you didn't call anybody's name, but please.
Mr. Speaker, please. We came to the House with the same election reform legislation, Mr. Speaker. We came to the House and they blockaded the House of Assembly outside the gates, Madam Speaker, to the point where parliamentarians were marooned inside and in the precincts of the House of Assembly, Mr. Speaker. To the point where, Mr. Speaker, we had to withdraw the legislation, Mr. And it was legislation, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it was legislation, Mr. Speaker, that was going to grant them that which they wished, Mr. Speaker. It was legislation geared at clarifying the issue, Mr. Speaker, of treating. So, Mr. Speaker, when they speak about treating, Mr. Speaker, the meaning of bribery is if you give somebody something to do something other than what they would have not done for a reward. That is what bribery is, you know. So, Mr. Speaker, if you get up on a Sunday morning and you put your clothes going to church, and I tell you, Mr. Speaker, let us go down there and take a drink, and I will buy the drinks. That is bribery. You understand what I'm saying? But if somebody in a foreign land, Mr. Speaker, comes down on their own free will, and you don't know where they're going to vote, you don't know how they're going to vote, and they put their X, and you didn't influence them to put the X on the left, if they had decided to put it on the right, Mr. Speaker, that can't be bribery. So what I would advise Dominicans in the diaspora, because you see, this is the party that want to disenfranchise overseas voters from voting, you know, Mr. Speaker. This is it. They want to take away the birthright of Dominicans, legitimate Dominicans who want to come home to exercise their franchise. They want to take it away. But I want to inform all the people in the diaspora to avoid the so-called issues of bribery. Put your red T-shirt on you when you come into the airport. And I vote in Labour, so nobody wouldn't have no questions about what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. Because you cannot bribe somebody to do that which they intended to do, Mr. Speaker. That is what must happen, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, when I hear the leader of the opposition, talking about elections with integrity,
Order, please. Order, members, please.
Mr. Speaker, because that is the definition, you know, for bribery. If you convince somebody to do something against the intention of which they wanted to do for a reward, if you change their intention, that is bribery, that is what it is. And we're listening to the leader of the opposition this morning speaking about elections with integrity, Mr. Speaker. Fair access to the media. Fair access to the media, Mr. Speaker, in this day and age. Where were you, Mr. Speaker, in 1999? Where were you in 1999, Mr. Speaker? Mr. Speaker, the radio station, DBS, is a business. It's a business. And anybody can go to DBS at any time. You pay your money, and you can go, and you buy your time. You buy your time. Mr. Speaker, it is not no extra influence that the Labour Party has over DBS Radio. DBS is a business like Kyrie FM or QFM or Vibes Radio. You go to the radio, the manager tells you, sir, $100 for 1 hour, $250 for an advertisement, $50 for what's on, but we do it every day. We have village fees, and we pay to put our advertisements. So all politicians have equal access to any radio station in Dominica, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, $30 a voter. $30 a voter. I wonder if I hear right, Mr. Speaker. $30 a voter, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, that is all I will say on that. So, Mr. Speaker, when we speak, Mr. Speaker, about a growing unemployment problem, Mr. Speaker, that is not what the facts indicate, Mr. Speaker. That is not what the facts indicate. If you check the facts, Mr. Speaker, you will see that the unemployment rate in Dominica has actually dropped, Mr. Speaker, in Dominica. I mean, and that is why it is important for us to have our facts when we speak, you know. We have to have our facts, you know. We cannot, it is irresponsible for politicians to stand here and make statements that are covered by, far and wide in the world and make false statements. Mr. Speaker, I have already told you what our GDP was in 1999. Let me tell you, the Caribbean Development Bank, the CDB, not Dr. Roosevelt Skerrit, you know, or not the FS, you know, or not the budget controller, you know, Mr. Speaker. The CDB, the Caribbean Development Bank, reported that in the late 1990s, 97, 98, 99, who was in power? Who was in power? The highest poverty levels in Dominica existed in the late 1990s. The highest poverty levels, the highest level of poverty existed in the 1990s, Mr. Speaker. Check it out. And Madam Speaker, the same authority reported that in 2010, there was a significant reduction in poverty in Dominica. Significant reduction in poverty. And I have the statistics. Take your pen and paper, Honourable Member for the Salisbury Constituency, and write that down, Mr. Speaker. If you can. Poverty had dropped in 2003. Mr. Speaker, in 2003, poverty was 39%. The legacy of United Workers' Party in office. In 2003, the poverty rate was 39%. In 2009, the poverty rate had dropped to 28% under the Dominica Labour Party, Madam Speaker. This is the work of, and it is lower now. It's lower now, I guarantee you. I guarantee you that it is lower now, Mr. Speaker, even now. Go and check the facts. So when we talk about the years of neglect, where is the years of neglect? We had to repair the damage before we came to the House with that kind of budget which we are presenting, a budget of hope, Mr. Speaker, a budget that signals a paradigm shift, Mr. Speaker, a budget that takes us to the next level by placing the factors and the means of production in the hands of our people, Mr. Speaker, giving them the means to produce more, giving them the means to generate revenue, to earn income on their own. That is what we are talking about by this new budget that we are presenting to you. You're talking about a growing unemployment problem, and the facts doesn't say that. Years of neglect, and the facts do not say that, Mr. Speaker. Gains on the Freedom Party, we heard about it this morning, and he almost forgot to say United Workers' Party. It came as an afterthought. It wasn't even written in the printed text of which he read, Mr. Speaker. Which gains? But that is not what the facts tell us, Mr. Speaker. NEP has done little to alleviate the fears of young people who cannot find meaningful employment. Mr. Speaker, NEP has been in place now, Mr. Speaker, for a number of years. We started off originally, we said that we wanted to have only 400 people on the program. 4 years ago, 400 people, Mr. Speaker. Today, the program has grown to 2,000 people all over the country. I drive from the north to the south and back every day to come to work. And I can tell you, it is a marvelous job that these young people are doing as far as beautification and cleanup is concerned around the country. And I am told that there are some teams in the east, like in La Plaine and in the Kalinago territory and all over Dominica, who are doing marvelous work under the NEP, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Education is boasting higher levels of achievement at the school-based assessment grade 6 school-based assessment because we have our mentors at the primary schools working with the slower students on after lessons and helping the teachers. Mr. Speaker, last year, we spent 11 million on the NEP. We gave to the private sector through salaries and payment of social security and that sort of thing, Mr. Speaker, in the region of $6 million direct help by placing our interns at private sector institutions to help the private sector. Direct assistance to the private sector, Mr. Speaker. The government has failed spectacularly at generating growth. And this is not what the figures have told us. The budget grew in this fiscal year. When you all speak, I want you to challenge that figure, Mr. Speaker. And I will repeat it again, for you. I'll repeat it again, Economic activity expanded. There was real growth of 2.8%. Challenge that when you say that the economy didn't grow. And the economy is expected to grow even further in 2017, Mr. Speaker. These 2017, 2018, Mr. Speaker. These are the facts. Mr. Speaker, grant revenue have fallen. But we came here in 2015 and we were laughed at, we were jeered at the budget. The opposition said we couldn't raise money. We couldn't raise money, Mr. Speaker. And now that we are boasting a windfall because of what this government have been able to do with the Citizenship by Investment program, in spite of the attacks on that program by the opposition, we say, Mr. Speaker, that grant revenue have fallen. But this is not what the figures show us, Mr. Speaker. This is not what the figures show us. And if we have serious issues with the procurement laws, I challenge you to name one breach of the procurement law so far. Don't put out general statements. Don't cast aspersions and innuendos. Don't make false statements in the air in generality. Bring your facts to substantiate the statements which you make. And I challenge you to tell me which section of the procurement laws have been breached. Mr. Speaker, but every pal rep here on this side of the house, I know for a fact, will tell you, when we want to do things for our constituents, we want to build a road, we go to the Ministry of Communication and Works, they have to bring us back and bring us forth and make sure your papers are in order, and the Ministry of Finance will send back the application. The Prime Minister, if the application is not in order, will send it back to the Ministry of Communication and Works. The Minister of Communication and Works is almost frustrated by the amount of hoops that we have to jump to do a little road in our constituency. To do 100 feet of road, which is less than $200,000, you have to go and get 3 contractors, and the 3 contractors have to bid, and then when they bid, the money can't even come to you, the money have to go to the village council, and the mayor or the chairman have to tell you that you have to spend the money like that, and the contractor gets 30%. Mr. Speaker, there is no pal rep here that I know that have any control over monies given for constituency empowerment. Mr. Speaker, to the point where the Marigot Village Council have been given monies up to 2 years ago, so $300,000. When I heard the leader of the opposition stand here and he read out a litany of things to be done, Kayambuk Road to be fixed, that bridge to be done, this one, the dam, even some of the members on that side thought that he was using indecent language, and I'll tell him no, that is actually a road in Marigot. There is $300,000, the dam bridge. $300,000 sitting, Mr. Speaker, at the Marigot Village Council as we speak, and the leader of the opposition doesn't even know that, Mr. Speaker, in his very constituency, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, I want him to point out to me which breach of the procurement laws. Tell me which breach, Mr. Speaker. Targeting growth. We boasting, Mr. Speaker, of growth of 2.8%, and we say the economy will even grow further in the next fiscal year. And the leader of the opposition tells us that he wants to see a growth rate of 5 to 7%. Where in the region, where in the CARICOM, forget the CARICOM, Mr. Speaker, where in the monetary union you have growth of 5%, Mr. Speaker? Where in the monetary union you have growth of 5%, Mr. Speaker? After having come from Mr. Speaker, where we were in 2000, 2001, 2002, and today we are enjoying growth after Erica, less than hardly 2 years after tropical South America, that wiped out 95% of our gross domestic product. We should be reeling under Erica right now. People should be in tents. After Hurricane David, people were in the gardens and in the Windsor Park. 2 years after Hurricane David in tents. After tropical storm in Louisiana, 10 years after, people were still living in the stadium in tents. Mr. Speaker, today, people are already placed in their homes, comfortably built. Mr. Speaker, you're talking about 5% and 7% growth? I mean, boy, God hates an ungrateful person, you know, Mr. Speaker. So, Madam Speaker, we talk about the banks not lending money. But the government has no control over the banks. Even the National Bank of Dominica, Mr. Speaker, which was controlled by the government in the late 1990s, as soon as we brought the IMF in, you know what was the first recommendation of the IMF? Divest your shares, divest controlling shares in the National Bank of Dominica. And why did they tell us to divest controlling shares? Why? Because the government before had abused the bank to the point of bankruptcy. So the first prescription of the IMF was divest your majority shares on the board of the bank. So when you tell us about the banks have ample liquidity, the First Caribbean Bank is not controlled by the government of Dominica. The Royal Bank and the Scotia Bank is not controlled by the government of Dominica. The credit union, there was a certain credit union who boasted of millions of dollars in profit last month. Thank you very much. The National Cooperative Credit Union boasted millions of dollars in profit, but the government cannot come to the NCCU and say, drop your interest rates to 3%. We did that where we can or where we could. And where we could do that was at the Aid Bank. So we gave the Aid Bank money for tourism and agriculture, and after this budget, manufacturing. And we said to drop your interest rates to 3%. That is where we had, that is what we had control over, and that is what we have done for the people. And you heard the housing initiatives to come, where we will work with the Dominica Social Security to make affordable housing available to the middle class. So the teachers and the policemen and the nurses who want to build and the public servants who want to build will be able to have monies available to them. We will build the development, Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, and make it available to the middle class housing. While we continue the housing revolution. While we continue the housing revolution, Mr. Speaker, that is what we will continue to do for the people of the Commonwealth of Dominica, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, it is not just the government that we are not the ones blowing our trumpet, you know. We are not the ones blowing our trumpet. It is all the international organizations who are speaking about the great job that this government continues to do, Mr. Speaker. And the leader of the opposition is right, that we were not the ones who started the Citizenship by Investment program. It was called the Economic Citizenship Program. And it was there, Madam Speaker, years ago, in 1993, the program had started under Greystone. And we know the fiasco of Greystone. We know what happened with Greystone. We know that neither the Minister of Finance or the Attorney General in the years 1995 to 2000 controlled the escrow account. We know that the escrow account was controlled by the promoter Greystone and the Prime Minister of the country at the time. Today, not one politician can sign on any account of the escrow, not the Prime Minister, who is the Minister of Finance, not anyone, not even the Attorney General, Mr. Speaker. Those accounts are controlled by top public officers. In other words, we are the ones who have put the checks and balances in place to ensure that the program is as successful as it is today. Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, we are the ones, everybody knows, that we are the ones who implemented the real estate option of the program. We are the ones who implemented the Economic Diversification Fund, so that persons now could come if they're not interested in the real estate option, they could invest in the cash option, so that we have a pool of funds that we could use to buy chalk to put in the schools, we could use to buy medicines to put in the hospital, we could use to fix the road. We are the ones who implemented the diversification fund, Madam Speaker. This is the work of this government. That is the work that we continue to do, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, when you talk about population increase as a result of passport sales, and we don't know who the citizens are, why are we doing that? Why are we doing that? We're supposed to be responsible men and women here in this honorable House of Assembly. Every single successful applicant to the Citizenship by Investment Program is registered in the Gazette of Dominica. Registered in the Gazette. Anybody can go to the printery and buy a Gazette and read it. Every single citizen is placed. And I think, Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, that Dominica is the only country with the program who has that requirement. That every single successful applicant is registered in our Gazette, published in the Gazette, Mr. Speaker. So they keep coming here and tell us, Mr. Dan, don't misrepresent the facts. This is not fair to the public who's listening to us. We're concerned about sale of passports in terrorism hotspots. In terrorism hotspots. Mr. Speaker, but Madam Speaker, but there are other places in the Caribbean right now who have citizens who have gone to Syria and Libya to fight alongside ISIS. Right here in the Caribbean, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the bombing in parts of Europe, like Paris and Belgium and those other parts, were not caused by terrorists coming in. They were caused by citizens of these countries, Madam Speaker. So when we talk about we're dealing with terrorism hotspots, what is that? What exactly do you mean by that? Madam Speaker, there were bombings in the United States caused by United States citizens. Madam Speaker, so where is a terrorist hotspot? Everywhere in the world is a terrorist hotspot. But it doesn't mean that you are going to tie your hands and tie your feet and not move ahead with your Citizenship by Investment Program, because every single applicant is properly vetted. We have a due diligence process that is second to none in the Caribbean, Madam Speaker. And we are not the first ones to have a Citizenship by Investment Program, you know. There are about 20 or 30 other countries around the world that have programs. The Great United States of America has a program called an EB-5 program that you can go and invest and you're entitled to become a citizen. In the United Kingdom, there is a program. Right here in the Caribbean, Madam Speaker, St. Kitts has a program, Antigua has a program, St. Lucia just started a program, Grenada has a program, Madam Speaker, so it's not us. You know, and when we talk about, you know, that is why the US has issued an advisory and we have the corresponding banking issues today. That is not so at all. That is not so at all. Because, Madam Speaker, you have countries in the Caribbean today. St. Vincent doesn't have a program. Barbados doesn't have a program, Madam Speaker. In fact, the Prime Minister of St. Vincent, Dr. Ralph Gonsalves, is one of the harshest critics of any citizenship program. Yet, he has corresponding banking issues. I'm happy that the member for Salisbury is shaking his head in agreement. So it is not the citizenship by investment programs that is causing the corresponding banking issues that we have today, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we had, I mean, let's trace the attitude of the more developed countries and the first world to the third world countries, you know. Let us go back to bananas, you know. We had our bananas. We cannot compete with Costa Rica and Peru. One estate in Central and South America is bigger than Dominica. People growing bananas with tractors, Madam Speaker. When they harvesting is on trains, they harvesting bananas. Chiquita, Dole, and Del Monte have bigger estates than Dominica in those places. Yet still, we saw that we would challenge our preferential treatment, was challenged. They said that it was unfair for our bananas to enjoy preferential treatment on the UK market. They took us to the World Trade Organization, WTO. We lost the preferential treatment. Bananas gone through. We come back again, Mr. Speaker. We burst our brains. We got innovative. We got creative. We had the offshore banking sector. Don't forget that. We had the offshore banking sector where persons of high net worth could invest and open an account here. International business people, Madam Speaker. Again, those big countries, they come with the FATF and the Egmont Group and all kind of things, Madam Speaker, and cause us to have to change our laws. Madam Speaker, we went and we changed our laws to satisfy their requirements. Lo and behold, the entire offshore banking sector crashed. Was it something that we had done? We were blacklisted, Madam Speaker. It was something that we have done. We come up again, Madam Speaker, now that we have the Citizenship by Investment program. Again, they see that we have a program that is causing us to generate millions through our ingenuity. They are coming again, Mr. Speaker. So that is a way that the developing countries keep the third world in check. Keep us in check. You mustn't do anything for yourself. You must come with cap in hand and beg and go to the IMF and go to the World Bank. And that is what they are, and go to the EU for money every time. But this government under this Prime Minister says that by the sweat of our brow and the brains that we have in our head, we will bring prosperity to the people of Dominica. And that is what we continue to do, Mr. Speaker. And that is what we are trying to do. That is what we have been doing with the Citizenship by Investment program, Mr. Speaker. And it is clear we have the program on all fours. We have the program well organized, and it's working for us. And the opposition must stop their attack against the Citizenship by Investment program. Stop it. St. Vincent don't have a program. They have been de-risked. They have been threatened with de-risking. Jamaica doesn't have a program. Barbados doesn't have a program. Belize doesn't have a program, Madam Speaker. And we see they're facing the same problems that we have faced. So when we hear our Royal Bank account was closed down because of nefarious activity, I mean, we mustn't say that. We mustn't make statements here that cannot be substantiated by facts, because that is not the case, Mr. Speaker. That is not the case. Every single country in the CARICOM have been affected by the de-risking issue, even those who have no Citizenship by Investment program, Mr. Speaker. Because I'm not going to say that, Mr. Speaker, all the countries of the Caribbean are affected. So you're speaking at both sides of your mouth now. You're speaking at both sides of your mouth. One time, Dominica have problems with Royal Bank because of de-risking, because of our Citizenship program, and then you come back and tell us now all the countries of the Caribbean have the same de-risking problems, speaking at the both sides of your mouth. But we understand that, Mr. Speaker, and that is okay. And Madam Speaker, when we speak, Madam Speaker, we speak as if this government just came to office, and then before this government, there was no government in office. We speak like it was 2000 that we became independent, and there was no government before us. So what happened to Christopher Skase, the fugitive from Australia, who was running from the law and ended up here because of the Citizenship program, the re-engineered program? What happened to Al-Masari, the fugitive that ended up here because of the Labour Party was not in power when Christopher Skase and Al-Masari, fugitives from the law, were running, Mr. Speaker? We were not in power yet, Madam Speaker. We were not in power yet, Madam Speaker, when the venture capital fund that was put in the aid bank was abused. We were not in power yet. We were not in power yet when the Trinidad contractors came down here to do the Watton Waven Road and got the contract for 6 million, subcontracted, and they don't know where the rest of the money passed, Mr. Speaker. We were not in power yet when those things were happening, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker. And we say, Madam Speaker, the leader of the opposition said that he's going to abolish the geothermal program. Madam Speaker, when I heard that, I said, no. I cringed. I said, no, I didn't hear it. You're going to abolish the geothermal program, Mr. Speaker? You're going to do away with the geothermal program completely, Mr. Speaker? You're going to come with wind. You're going to come with wind, and you're going to come with solar. And you're going to come with hydro. And we have hydro already. Madam Speaker, that is a program that we have invested $50 million to date. 50 million. We have drilled holes. We have found the power successfully. Madam Speaker, we are now going on. We are ending negotiations with Domlec so that when we have the power, we can sell it to Domlec, and Domlec can make it available to the consumers at a price they can afford. Right now, Dominica's electricity rates is the highest in the region. And you know why? Why? Because it was the United Workers' Party who sold Domlec under their reign. Madam Speaker, United Workers' Party sold Domlec.
You have 5 minutes left. You have 5 minutes left.
Madam Speaker, I move that the honourable member be given an extra 10 minutes to complete his presentation.
Second. Madam Speaker.
And can we bring it to the vote? Sorry. Can we have a seconder? It has been moved and seconded, but the honourable member be given a further 10 minutes to complete his presentation. And I will put it to the vote now. Those in favour? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. You may continue. It seems somebody else wants to give you an hour. Can I put that to the vote?
And we have to be serious in this house, you know. We have to be serious in this house, you know. Because facts cannot be erased, you know. Facts are incontrovertible, you know. Facts are like the laws of nature, you know. As the east is to the west, as the sun will rise in the morning and set in the evening, Madam Speaker, the facts cannot be changed, Madam Speaker. Cannot be changed, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, thank God today, we are hearing about tangible efforts to build the international airport, Madam Speaker. In 1999, when we were nearing the 2000 general elections, the United Workers' Party went to Trinidad and borrowed $150 million from Royal Merchant Bank and Royal Bank of Trinidad and Tobago at 14% interest rate. 14% interest. That is a commercial rate to do capital projects. Right now we're hearing about interest rates at 3% in the State Bank. They borrowed money at 14%, and they committed all of government's dividends from the now flow, which was cable and wireless, to the repayment of that loan, Madam Speaker. All our dividends. And in 1999, that loan was taken in Trinidad. Before 2000, every single cent of that money had been spent, Madam Speaker, and no international airport can do it. No international airport can do it. You understand what we're dealing with, Madam Speaker? Today, you want to... Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, today the Prime Minister is saying...
Wait, your thing went off.
Today the Prime Minister is saying, and he has announced in his budget, Madam Speaker, and we have no reason not to believe him, because everything that the Prime Minister has said that he was going to do in the past, he has done. He said he's going to build a sports stadium, it is built. He said we're going to do the West Coast Road, it is done. We say we're going to do the house for the President, the State House, it is done. We say we're going to do the hospital. Madam Speaker, by October, the first phase of the hospital, the accident and emergency department at the Princess Margaret Hospital will be completed thanks to this government, Madam Speaker. So I have no reason not to believe, Mr. Speaker. So I endorse the move of the Honourable Prime Minister to take $5 million, put that into a fund every month. So when we're ready to build the airport, we will have our own money to come to the table with, Madam Speaker. Our own hard work money from Dominican taxpayers to put, Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, to build the international airport. $5 million. So, Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, when we talk about empowerment, the leader of the opposition, Jed, at constituency empowerment, he laughed. And I was trying to figure out, but why would somebody, let alone the leader of the opposition, scoff at constituency empowerment? Madam Speaker, you have small business, people making their little coconut oil, their little tablet and coconut cheese, their straw basket and straw mat in the Carib territory. Madam Speaker, you have people who have their little lolo, as you would call it, a little rum shop, selling their little groceries, Madam Speaker, throughout the constituency. Their little bakery baking bread, and they saddle under debt. Some of them don't have no collateral, Madam Speaker. So they cannot go to the credit union, or they cannot go to the National Bank because they don't have no collateral. And the government is saying that to ease you up, for you to expand your program, you have a little vegetable production. Madam Speaker, you're doing well at the markets, and they're making some small business available, and you are against that? You criticizing that? Empowerment of people? Madam Speaker, you have people, Madam Speaker, who have had no washroom facilities at their homes, Madam Speaker, for years. The old, the elderly, the infirm, the aged. And now that the government is building washrooms to eradicate pit latrine and all of the other issues that come with that, and you are against that, I would like the other members of the opposition, when you get up to speak, speak from your heart. Speak to your constituents. You cannot be criticizing initiatives that are geared towards the upliftment of the ordinary folk, the masses and the grassroots in those constituencies. You cannot be against that. You're talking about what is the impact. What is the impact? Madam Speaker, when you give a small contractor road to do, you give a small contractor $200,000, and he employ all the boys on the block, and they create work for 6 months so that people can feed their children. They can buy a little something to put at their homes. They can go buy cots and take a little fridge to put some cold water for them to drink. You don't call that empowerment of people at the grassroots level? When the government assists a student who is obviously a bright student, who have gone through the primary, the secondary, and the tertiary college education, and have gotten the necessary requirements to matriculate onto university, and because of this economic state of their parents, they cannot afford, and the government comes in and gives a child a scholarship. You are against that? But there were 6 scholarships, and you take 2 for yourself? Take 2 for yourself, Madam Speaker? Eh? And you against that, Madam Speaker? Madam Speaker, I mean, these are the issues that we're talking about. And when we speak about, we're thinking about international airport in 3 years. High-speed ferry in 3 years. Garbage management in 3 years. Medical, where is the money coming from for that? Where is the money coming from? You said you will abolish the CBI. You said you will abolish geothermal, but you want comprehensive road network. Where the money is coming from? You want chocolate factory. Where is the money coming from? You want canning factory and fish drying factory. How much factory you want? And up to now, you cannot bring us a concrete proposal of how you're going to raise the finances to bring all those things. Madam Speaker, that reminds me of the 1999 election when the Dominican farmers were told that they would get $1 a pound of bananas. Up to now, jig-jolly, Madam Speaker. In fact, we saw an exodus of banana farmers. 6,000 banana farmers left the banana industry between 1995 and 2000 because of the United Workers' Party. I mean, change your ways. Change your ways. Come with something new. You're talking about a high-speed ferry, but the government just gave a high-speed ferry captain $200,000. The government did that already. You're talking about sporting facilities. The government told you we are going to build a sporting complex at the stock farm. Yesterday, the people were here showing us the fine drawings, and we can assure the Dominican people that we know where the money will come from to do those projects. And I'm very happy about my constituency, Madam Speaker. I'm very happy about Portsmouth, Madam Speaker. The work that is already going on in the Portsmouth constituency. I mean, roads are being built like crazy. We're going to refurbish every single road in Portsmouth, Madam Speaker. And now we are hearing that we are going to get concessions so we can get our materials to continue to uplift the town. Yes. We have the Kapinski Hotel. We have the Moroccan Hotel. We have the Silver Beach Hotel, Madam Speaker. And the Minister of Tourism have promised us even more in our yachting sector. We just put on about 50 moorings for yachts because we have the biggest yachting industry right there in Portsmouth because of the Portsmouth Association of Yacht Services and Security, Madam Speaker. That is what we continue to do. Madam Speaker, I'm very happy. Madam Speaker, this to me is a dream come true because we have been speaking about it, we campaigned about it, and now we are happy that it will be a reality. It is the administrative building for Portsmouth, Madam Speaker. Because that administrative building will not only serve the town of Portsmouth. People who have to leave their home in Penville and Wesley at 6 o'clock in the morning, they have to marry God, they have to pay $20 to come down. They have to have lunch for another $20 and $20 to go back to get a $5 birth certificate from the registry. If we put that building in Portsmouth, we can have the registry, we can have the traffic division, we can have the immigration department, we can have the sports division, we can have a place for the council, even the Prime Minister's extension of the public support program. That office can be placed in that building. The Dominica Social Security can have an office in that building. So residents from the entire north do not have to trek into the capital. This for us personally is a dream come true, Mr. Speaker, and we are very happy about that. And we're not like the member for Marigot that asking for things and money is there to be spent and you're spending it. Every single dollar that have been given to us so far, we are spending to uplift and upgrade the town of Portsmouth, and we will continue to do so for the foreseeable future. You're talking about you want 2 trauma centers, but the budget tells you that there are 4 smart hospitals to come. You don't understand what smart means then, Madam Speaker. Smart means that they will be outfitted with computers and flat screen televisions so that when you have a traumatic accident and emergency, let's say a traffic accident happening in Capuchin, you can bring them to the Portsmouth Hospital, and a surgeon at the Princess Margaret Hospital can guide a doctor at the Portsmouth Hospital online and on screen because of the smart hospitals. That is what we intend to do for our people in healthcare, Madam Speaker. So you're regurgitating stuff. No new initiative can come from you. You haven't sat down and looked at the thing and studied. So, Madam Speaker, I am confident about what this government is doing.
You have 1 minute.
I'll wind up in 1 minute, man. I'm absolutely confident about what this government is doing. We have gone through the hard grinds. We have made the sacrifice. The people of Dominica has placed confidence in us. And right now, we are continuing to empower the citizens of the Commonwealth of Dominica, this fair land. God bless the people of Dominica. God bless this government. And may us continue to grow to prosperity. Thank you very much.